Okay, so we are on the last part of the Old Testament. So this part is about um, the split of the kingdoms and the exile. So essentially, after King Solomon, the kingdom splits because of a disagreement between Rehoboam and Jeroboam. Really, not because of that, but because it was something that God did. And they become two kingdoms. They become the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Because the temple that Solomon built is in Judah, the king of the southern kingdom, which I believe is Jeroboam, the northern kingdom, he basically makes new places of worship so that the people that live in his kingdom don't have to go to Jerusalem. But unfortunately, these places of worship are idolatrous and illegal in God's eyes. When you read the book of Kings, you will find that they are referring to two different sets of kings. And it often says he did what was good in the eyes of God, or he did what was evil. After the split kingdom, God sends prophets to speak on behalf of God. He sends them before the exile, during the exile, and after the exile. There are major prophets and minor prophets, and mostly because of the size of their books. The major prophets, the people consider major prophets, have bigger books, and there are also major prophets you might say that don't have books named after them. And the prophets also give prophecies of the coming Messiah. So the northern and then eventually the southern kingdom are exiled, and they go into a diaspora of people groups. Essentially, they get taken away to places all over the world, and the Jewish people, or the Israelites, are scattered all over the world. And you'll find that some books, there are books that take place when after the exile of the northern and the southern kingdom, where there are Israelites that are no longer in Israel, and they are operating as Israelites in a different context, such as Daniel and Esther and Limitations. Uh, but they eventually return to Israel, or some of them eventually start to return to Israel, and that's chronicled in books like Ezra and Nehemiah. But they do the same old thing they always do, and they're not they're not devoted to God. So the end of the Old Testament, basically, you see that the people continue to fail at following the commands of God, but uh, there is hope for restoration. And then scholars believe that there are about 400 years before the New Testament begins. So that is basically how the Old Testament ends, with the split of the kingdom, with God sending prophets to speak on his behalf, and then with the exile of the people, them returning to Israel. But when they return, their countries are in the control. Their country is in the control of other nations, even though it's their country. There's problems there, but they still failed to follow the commands of God. So most of those stories can be found in First and Second Kings, First Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, and also the prophets. And that's it for the Old Testament. I hope that was helpful. I hope that you found that you were able to connect a bunch of dots, and I'm looking forward to unpacking the New Testament for you. But how did you do? Uh, did you know more than you thought you did? I'll see you in the New Testament.